following scene this evening in New Sarum takes place just at the close of the last resort. The last customer has been ushered out. Carl is still here to assist with closing. Oh, hell of a day, Carl. Hell of a day. Hell of a night. How are you holding up? Carl looks at Stefan. Quite well. I definitely need a vacation, though. Now, why don't you go sit up at the booth? Take a rest. You deserve it. And that is where I will make my oh shit. Mesmerize roll. And I actually need to. Oh, son of a bitch. Carl is strong-willed. I'm going to remember that. With the suggestion behind Stefan's words, Carl kind of looks around for a moment. Stefan begins to the closing duties, cleaning, making sure that pour caps are properly exchanged for clean ones. Dirty ones are put into a sink to soak, at least for a good 15 minutes, in clean solution in water. Carl eventually looks around the bar, looking back at the rather comfortable bench at the booth. Eyes a little heavy. Gets up, makes his way, hand on the short railing, and then over to the bench. Eventually, after 30 minutes, Stefan has taken care of the pour caps on the most heavily used bottles of the night and changed out all of the others. About 5 to soak. He's swept and run a non-electric carpet cleaner over the thin carpeting, wiped down various surfaces, and when he notices Carl is a bit dozed. At which point he walks over to Carl, keeping close attention to the sound of his footfalls to keep them unnoticed. So as not to wake anyone. And proceeds at the right of the man's rather large neck, head cocked to one side, takes the easiest route as to not disturb him too much, and begins to feed, which takes about a good 20 minutes. Always cleanly done. Nothing spilled on the clothing of the victim. Nothing left on the skin. Nothing left on Stefan. Not a trace. once Stefan has got his fill. 2 blood points. He licks the wound and then kind of wipes it off very slightly so as not to leave kind of saliva residue. That's impossible anymore. And sits Carl up a little bit. And goes about his duties. Somewhere along the way, as he's getting the last of his work done, he does remember a particular delivery that does need to be made. And goes over, grabs his phone, and gives Axel a call.
Axel, at this point, has been, well, it's been a good night, all things considered. And I need to end up doing a quick check here. Double checking. 2,
6, 7.
Yeah.
So done at 5. That's 3 wrong. Okay, so it's 7.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's actually been pretty good. For the record, that's performance empathy using Axel's specialty common ground. That's basically just saying on how his night has gone, because at this current moment, he is actually at the Obsidian Shore Lounge, his own personal business and, well, would-be temporary haven, if it wasn't for a recent announcement that Gideon ended up handing to him personally. Actually, thinking about getting in at this moment, it makes him look to the seat that he was previously occupied, side by side with Leonard, not more than a few nights ago. The soft open has been successful, if only to end up helping Axel marry up the kinks. Something as commonplace as collecting glassware while trying to end up holding in large bars is actually surprisingly difficult, especially with the limited space of being able to move around in a packed house. Thankfully, that wasn't so much the case, but it is a Sunday night. Still, he has seen new faces, and more importantly, returning faces in only a few nights already. This little curiosity at the, well, at the northern docks has started to end up getting a fair amount of word of mouth. And within a few nights, Axel's been able to end up paying off most of the liquor he's going to need for the remainder of the month. Now it comes down to maintaining the ice and the bills, keeping the glassware coming, and start to make plans for hiring on staff. He's been scouting out and keeping an ear to the ground. He's been hearing some fun things through the grapevine. But while he works, now cleaning up, ushering out the last of the customers who stayed a little bit longer than perhaps they should, but Axel's trying to keep a good impression. Axel gets a phone call, closing the door. Yeah. Hey, Stefan. I trust all is well.
Oh, quite well. I actually had the busiest Sunday night that I have had at the last resort in some time.
Oh, okay. That's
10 per hour, and by the end of the night, I had 40 people filtering out.
Axel pauses for a moment. He's actually doing the numbers in his head quickly.
It was a very good night.
Yeah, Axel can't seem to focus enough on to end up making the logistics of that, but the number sound was right.
Yeah. Oh, 1 moment.
Oh.
Yeah. No, it's fine if you were tired. No. I got all the work done. Yeah. I will see you Tuesday night. Thank you. Sorry. Carl.
No, it's understandable. You got to end up doing the grind.
Well, between you and me, sometimes you have to take sometimes you have to take advantage of a situation. And work is, as long as it's just me, is not a bad place to take care of needs. But
I understand.
that aside, I I realize that it is a day late, but or 2 days late, I should say. But the piece is ready.
Excellent. Well, I've been trying to end up keeping track. Trust me, I've been making use of that U-Haul while I've had the chance. It's been a little rough, but it's been useful. So, is the piece at your haven?
Yeah, it is. It's quite heavy. I have the piece itself, the mantle that it will sit on. I placed a groove
Okay.
the center of the mantle because the keel is sharp, so that will help it sit along with the bag of fine sand. Everything is ready to more or less go out the door quickly. It is already set up, but I will I will need some assistance. I can actually. Where is it you would like the piece delivered? I am actually getting ready to head back.
Okay. Well, Axel's bridling off in the dress, and to my understanding, Stefan has never been to or even in the vicinity of the old building known as the Jack as of yet, correct?
No. He's only been around the southern docks.
Yeah. Yeah, so that'll be that's actually pretty close to the northern pier.
No, it is a side of the water I've not seen much of, but I have heard quite a lot.
Oh, what'd you hear? I
Uh,
mean, outside of the bang.
it tends to be quite a bit touristy, quite the sight for those who do not live around here.
Well, I'd like to think so, but still, you'd be amazed on what some of the locals will end up saying. Yeah, but well,
Okay.
we can discuss business when you end up getting here.
Give me 20, 30 minutes, depending on the taxi.
Excellent, excellent.
So I will see you soon. Stefan takes the phone, hangs up, and folds it, placing it into the inner breast pocket of his jacket. And with that, takes one more look around the place, probably picking up a bar rag, slightly damp with water, running it across the bar, across the wood, folding it up, leaving it at the end. He heads out the door, locking it behind him, turning off every light except for, basically security lighting. Out to the cab that is just pulled up. Called a few minutes earlier. Heads back to his apartment. takes about 15-20 minutes. This traffic isn't too heavy at this hour. The cab pulls up out front of Pickett's Diner. Stefan tells the cab driver to pull around the corner just a little bit, keeping the back of the car close to the bottom of the stairs leading up to his apartment. He asks the driver to hold. Driver nods. Stefan gets out of the car, heads up the stairs, unlocking the door to his apartment. He walks over to what looks like a mail sorting box. He plucks an envelope out of it, placing it in an inside jacket pocket, and begins first with the sandbag. He focuses a bit of his blood into strength to cause his muscles to become, or his muscle tissue to become denser, to allow him to carry heavier burdens as he's done before, and begins to take down the sandbag, then the mantle for the piece, and lastly, as it's been carefully wrapped in some of the original material, taking care not to damage any of the rigging, the sail, the dowels, takes down the actual piece itself, now a firm 3 feet long. He barely manages, very slowly, very carefully, after getting the other two into the trunk. The driver got out and secured it with bungee cord. He keeps the piece itself within the car, and after a few minutes, after some fidgeting, manages to get the piece itself within the back of the cab. The cab heads off to the address that Axel had given him so that this delivery can be completed.
Axel, at this point, he's just cleaning up at this point. Getting rid of the ice out of the well, burning it. Out of character, in case you watch this, burning the ice is referred to pouring boiling water over ice in order to melt it quickly in order to clear an ice well. No, I am not actually using fire in my own venue.
I knew what you meant.
Just in case. And Axel ends up continuing to clean up the ice well. He's just finished up the glassware, re-straightened out a lot of the linens that he ends up using as tablecloths. Looking over the place. He's already ended up taking a fair amount time just detailing the bar. more detailed than he's used to, actually. It feels almost this need to make sure everything is in perfect order, even going so far as to make sure that once he's recapped all of the alcohol, he is now even measuring the weight of the bottles and compares them to old notes. He starts writing them down, how much, as far as weight, is missing out of the bottle, doing calculations quickly just to figure it out. How much do you end up serving? Enough to end up going over the receipts, making sure that the pours are accurate, that everything's good to go. And it's while doing these calculations that he hears something pulling up outside. He places the notepad on the bar along with the pen, walks over to the front door and looks outside as he opens it.
When you look out the window, you do indeed see what looks like a new serum white cab, actually, not a yellow. And the back of the car, even though it's not a mid-size, it's a little bit larger than a mid-size sedan. You see a person carefully maneuvering a very cumbersome object out the back of the car. It looks as though it has something protruding straight up from a center mass that's being held, and covered in packing plastic very carefully.
Axel takes the time to make sure that the door doesn't lock behind him when he steps forward. Stefan might recognize a very familiar sight, something that's been missing for quite some time, hanging off around Axel's neck. Old, well, details coming back. And Axel, at this point, he looks at this cloth and then looks to the man carrying it, which I'm fairly certain is Stefan Braunfiedler himself.
Yes. He manages, by the time you walk out to the car, he's managed to have gotten the piece out. He clutches it close to him. It does not look like a light piece. For system, the effects of a blood buff is what's allowing him to lift this thing. But he still is straining under the weight, even though he has a firm grasp. But it's out of the core. Axel, can you...
Yeah, of course.
Wait. No. The trunk. The wooden mantle is in there, and so is the sandbag, if you can get those for me, as he cradles the piece, as straining as it is.
Yeah. Just Axel gestures towards the door behind him, and you can see, actually, it seems like a fairly meek location, a two-story building set between two large, almost like office buildings. It seems almost a little out of place, you know. It's something that stood the test of time in amongst this modern age, and a sign that is backlit, white letters through black black matting. You end up seeing the Obsidian Shore Lounge. A very modern looking sign, very simple typography, no fancy graphics or anything like that, just very neat and clean. Axel goes to the trunk and starts getting a hold while Stefan makes his way to the door, hoping to be able to open it for him before Stefan ends up trying to make things more cumbersome for himself.
Stefan just waits outside the door, taking in the side of the place. Fresh paint on the outside, smooth. The smell of the paint still in the air, even at this point, or even in this area.
Axel comes with a sandbag over his shoulder, and under his arms, he ends up holding
with a 6-foot mantelpiece or mantel setting. Yeah.
Well, underneath his arm being held very carefully, Axel leans and actually opens the door for Stefan Braunfiedler and holds it open. Despite the sandbag just balanced.
Stefan goes in hurriedly. Without saying anything, he just goes in hurriedly.
Yeah, Axel ends up going in as well and places the sandbag at the door and takes this wooden mantelpiece and places it across 2 tables, balancing it, and leaves Stefan as he ends up going outside, presumably maybe to pay the cab, as Stefan takes in the...
When you go out to the driver, he's actually about ready to head out. He's actually he's winding up the bungee cords, putting them back in the trunk, and is heading back to the driver's side when you come on out.
Axel goes to end up paying the man. He pulls out his wallet and actually starts rifling in the tip money that he's ended up earning.
No. Don't worry, Mac. It's already been paid for.
Yes, but you ended up delivering it, and it was something very important to me, and I think a job well suited is deserving of the bonus at the very least. I want to thank you. And he offers the man just a few, it's $5, but still, it's $5 he didn't have to drive for. It's a small bank of the head. Well, small bit of bank.
It's extra $5. Yeah, 65 on a job. That's not bad.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Hey, not a problem. You guys have a good night.
Yeah, well, if you get off shift at some point, feel free to drop by. We're always looking for friendly faces.
Hey, I'll remember that. So you're the owner of this place?
Something like that. Please.
Yeah. All right.
Name's Axel. I'd look forward to seeing you again.
James.
Pleasure to meet you, James.
I'll keep that in mind. Hey, if you ever need, anyone taken home, anyone too drunk to get back to the place on their own, actually pulls out a card. James Monroe, New Serum White, or White Cab. Give me a call.
I'll end up keeping that in mind. Yeah, James, I'd like to end up serving those who are, more blue-collar. Give them something a little bit upstanding, but not, too fancy. And quite frankly, this place was built to celebrate, those people who built New Serum. The guys who ended up breaking their backs for it, not the people who just paid it off,
Okay.
And you look like that kind of guy.
No, that's a good point. Speaking of blue collar stiffs and working, I actually just got like 2 calls come over the radio, so I got to get going. But
all right, you get going, James.
Have a good night.
I'll see you soon.
And he gets in the car and speeds off.
Axel watches and just smiles as James speeds off, and then that smile just leaves his face immediately. It's a front that he's learned to end up putting it on with people, but it makes him comfortable when it brings business back. At this point, he's had his fair share, but thankfully not too many people get rowdy. It's not the kind of establishment that just brings in people trying to get drunk. So I was quite pleased that his pointed demographic seems to have worked quite well in his favor, keeping it stress-free. When he steps in through the door, he takes in a look at Stefan, who I imagine at this point is, well, what is Stefan doing at this point?
Stefan has at the front end of the bar, basically the bottom of the L shape. Are the stools bolted to the floor, or are they movable?
No, they're movable.
Okay. Well, the two stools at the end are moved just under or by the window, and he's carefully set down the object to where the base of the object is leaning against the edge of the bar very gingerly, so as not to scratch the paint. And the protrusions coming off of the shape. Now that you get a really good look at it, it appears that there's white cloth above looks like a boat through the plastic. And he's basically got the 6-foot mantelpiece, and he looks like he's moved it behind the bar, and he appears to be taking measurements and looking elsewhere in the bar, trying to figure out where this would go. He hasn't done anything, it's just staged.
Yeah. Axel pulls up a chair, actually. Stefan, take a seat, relax for a moment. Actually, Axel locks the door before doing so, just giving them a moment of privacy as the automatic shutters start to close, giving them privacy.
It's difficult to relax before the job is entirely done. But he makes his way, still kind of looking around the whole place, taking in the atmosphere, taking a look at the murals along the back wall, above the restrooms. Yeah.
I've been busy the past couple of weeks.
The look as he's quite distracted, looking all around, taking in the clean look, the clean lines, the smooth contours, the clean look of the place. I mean, just even though it's new. He seems to be admiring the cleanness, the smooth lines, the symmetry of the place, and the materials used. As he walks on over to the table, the base of the object, good choice. Black granite, quite the challenging stone to work with, but appreciated. I could definitely see why it was as expensive as it was.
You can also understand why it is that I only entrusted this to you.
And
I do apologize for the mild deception, but I didn't want to, I think I've always seen you work best under pressure.
I see why you were so so stringent with the details of the job, of the commission for your client. This is quite a good place.
Well, I have something to confess, Stefan. There isn't a client. I am the client. Now I know it's not much of an art gallery,
No, 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 no. And Stefan just looks around, leaning back on the chair. This is exactly like this is exactly the same as my own college pursuits. The reason why my mother moved me here after tragedy and situations got complicated. This is the vision of a dream in the Americas.
Yeah. And I know that you always had a... You've always ended up taking pride in your work, Stefan, but I also know that you've wanted to end up having a chance to end up showing what you can do. Unfortunate as it is that not many people appreciate your talents like I do. But I thought, at the very least, I can end up showing the world what you can do.
Just guard this place from the rest of our kind. I'm sure you are already on top of that.
At this point, you are one of 5 kindred who know of this place. And only 5 kindred.
Understood. I've kept secrets before, and one more is not going to tax my mind.
In fact, I'd rather it not be a taxing.
It reminds me. You called in the boon, sir.
Yes, I did.
And thus, and he slides an envelope that looks rather bulgy, actually. It looks about that thick. And he slides it over to you. It's just a plain white legal envelope. And when you look inside, all in hundreds, 15 of them.
Axel looks to him a little confused.
For the materials. I fulfilled my end of the bargain. The material should not come out of your pocket, given it was a payment for a boon. And though we are of the same blood, a boon is a boon, as is Camarilla tradition. That is of moderate worth, that took months of savings to acquire, to be able to pull off. Rightfully, I'm glad I did so.
He looks at the money. And I'm going to have to roll a conscience check.
Oh!
Axel, after flipping through the hundreds that is in the business envelope, closes the envelope, places it back down, slides it over. The services were worth more than that.
No.
And Stefan
cuts you off. He just puts his hand up very gently, and puts his hand back on the envelope, taking his hand down. And I'm actually going to have to make a charisma and etiquette roll for this. After the statement, of course.
Of course.
The work was required. And the money, think of it, if not a repayment, think of it as an investment with no intention of return. Put it into the place. Keep the place going. Every little bit helps. And when he slides the envelope over, he doesn't just force it. He very carefully, very measuredly, while looking you in the eye, places it over in a polite fashion. Wow.
Yeah. Should this be an opposed rule since we're both trying to play etiquette here?
The other question is it appropriate that my merit come into play?
Oh, I'm not even going to argue that one. It is definitely in play.
Okay.
You're speaking.
So,
you're trying to use it off of a point.
Yeah.
Would you agree though that this would be in a opposed of the same?
Sure.
Okay. Axel, at this point, he has to concede. Axel's the business started off nicely, but he has no windfall. He hasn't been able to make sure that when things go slow, as they will when winter starts coming, and the cold of the wind this night is a reminder. He needs a windfall to keep the lights on, keep everything going. So he places his hand on the envelope, pulls it closer to him. Very well, Stefan. But I don't want.
I had a good night in tips. How do you think I still have $60 after paying the cab fare?
Wow. I'd buy you a drink, but that would seem inappropriate right now. Still.
Yeah. But
I'm hoping that you're pleased with what you see. I know I'm not much of an artist like yourself, but
no.
Learned a lot doing this.
Despite my own beliefs in art, it does not have to be perfect. The best show of craftsmanship is often ones that have flaws, and functional spaces most often do. But that is what makes them all the better and all the more appealing to look at. With my work, I tend to try to bring life to the inanimate, to show soul. There is no point, especially with my typical subjects, whether I have a model or not. It is important to show life and soul in the human form.
So this must have been very different for you. Instead.
It's quite the challenge. As he
soul isn't. Oh, go ahead.
He goes on over to the piece, actually. And he takes out from his right pocket a Leatherman tool, and he flicks a blade open, and he obviously keeps the blade of this thing sharp because it literally goes through the plastic like that, like almost a razor blade. And he peels it back over. Now what you can see are wood dowels with a spacing of about like this, with cross beams. You can see what looks like actual marine grade rope that are attached to the sails and are actually tied at various points according to the picture you gave him and actual things you've seen. And as he pulls it back, he kind of pulls it away to get the plastic all around the base to kind of keep it up. And he ushers you over.
Axel, he stands and walks towards him. He's speaking to Stefan as he does so. Stefan, the thing about a business is its soul isn't in the building, not even in the decor. It's in the people that make it and the people that come to it. It's about bringing people together and, oh my God.
You mentioned this was, or in this area, I am assuming that I could not help but overhear slightly catering to the blue-collar worker, dock workers in this case. And I believe not too long ago you mentioned something about history, hence the photograph for reference. This should be an adequate expression of the industry of the docks.
No, Stefan, no, it's more than adequate. He leans down and he just can't take his eyes off this.
The actual hull of the vessel, now even black granite has crystalline structure all throughout it, but on the hull of the vessel and on the deck of the vessel, it's all black. But you can see, especially with the soapstone, deck moorings, and the moorings along the side rail from bow to stern, there are soapstone inlay around where anchor chains and various other line would go through. You don't see any hint of a crystalline structure, and you do notice that the deck and the hull itself they seem to be built of stone plank, like darkwood plank or ebony plank.
My God, Stefan. It's amazing.
In system, the amount of successes that went into it are 15 for everything. Yeah. The important thing to remember is when you put up that mantle, make sure that it has a very strong bracing underneath it, because it is quite a heavy piece, as you no doubt can tell. But
Axel, look, on that mention, he has an idea. He ends up actually rushing behind the bar, and you hear him moving stuff. If you peek behind the bar, you might actually notice that one of the cubby holes that looks like it should hold a fridge. Clearly, Axel hasn't bought another fridge yet. It only has a few that hold, beer. But this one cubby hole that should be another fridge hasn't been filled yet, and instead is filled with, construction material and tools. But when he ends up pulling it out, what you see is what looks to be cast iron braces, and we're talking like huge brace you put in bolts to end up implementing this. This is not something you put nails in. He holds these and he says, I took the liberty of using your measurements and talking to the hardware supply, and they said this was probably the best way to end up doing it.
He walks over and takes a look at the braces.
Yeah, they're one piece, like thoroughly one piece.
Yeah. That'll do it. Yeah. He takes a look over the bar over where the glasses, where the bottle racks are. How much clearance between the top of that rack and the ceiling is there?
There's actually a fair amount of clearance. You'd probably say a good 4 feet. This building. The illusion of large space in this building is built out of the height of the ceiling rather
Okay,
than
so
the
the
actual
ceiling is
surface.
high. Okay, okay, cool. Which
Hence
is
one of the reasons why
unusual for its age.
yeah.
Okay.
You imagine it might have been a common house beforehand.
Yeah. He takes a look back over at the mural. This place is odd. There are many, many people that I went to school with. Painters, writers, various different craftsmen. Even one who studied the arts and carpentry. People who are unrealistic. They think that the arts have to be extremely polished. No, no. This is art. This place has soul in it. And he takes a moment and, of course, unbeknownst to you, he opens just every sense broad as he places his hand along the edge of the bar. Yeah, that will do it. It's a good thing that the mantle is flat bottom, so it will sit on the brace. When you place the piece, and he goes over to the mantle itself and just kind of moves it on over, keeping it upright like this. He points out the groove in the middle of it. Now, it's not a very thick piece of wood. I think it's maybe about that.
So it's about 1.25 inches.
Yeah, about 1.25 inches thick. Half the depth, or half of the thickness and depth in the bottom of it is grooved, and it looks. And he points this out. He says that this groove is so that the keel of the vessel sits in it. When you put the sand around it, this is why I said coarse or fine sand. When you put it around it and then use the rest to smooth it out, it should help support the vessel. It has a lot sharper keel than a model usually would. Hence the groove.
Wow. I think there's only one thing to do then, Stefan. Shall we? And with that, Axel, he rolls up his sleeves. He pulls out tools from behind the bar. Clearly he's been preparing for this. And
Stefan takes off his sport coat, places it on the back of the chair, and rolls up his sleeves as well.
And might I suggest, considering the theme of this particular event, as quaint as it may be, a dual craftsman check.
Yes.
Axel using his strength and Stefan using whatever stats he feels appropriate, since this seems to be a combination of both skill sets.
I will make a wits and crafts. Ugh.
Ooh.
Ugh.
Well, how many times are you penalized? You got 1, 2. So we're going to cancel 2 of mine.
Yep.
And that still means a success. It's not a bad one.
No,
It's
no.
not perfect, but Axel, when after everything is placed, the sand is lined well, everything's done. And Axel kind of smiles when he looks at it because after all this placing, these two working in tandem, that this process that takes at least an hour, just in the detail and maybe Stefan's art form, despite what he says, if I understand Stefan well enough, he still wants perfection even after his claim. But Axel smiles a bit when he ends up noticing that the bolts that they end up using require old washers. Maybe the bolts aren't quite sized right for this particular bit, and Axel smiles when they have to end up resorting to using washers because it, it's so blue collar. It's function, not just all form, and this art is being held up by the most mundane old bolts, the kind that you would imagine you'd actually find on this kind of ship. And where Stefan may find this as an imperfection, that, oh no, we could do so much better. Axel just smiles on how well this little error has built into so much more flavor of this piece.
High is a good reaction. Low would have been a bad reaction. That's Stefan's reaction.
But you tell me what's Stefan's reaction.
When the bracing goes up, and finally the piece is laid and it's in its inset groove in the mantle, sand is laid out, and it takes quite a good number of it. Smoothing it is a must. He kind of steps back a little bit and still on the top of the bar itself, being very careful as to not scratch it, the heels of his shoes. I'm sure at this point my father would be proud. Some would say using such materials to hold up a setting for such a nice piece would be a travesty, but no. It's a testament to factory workers as well as dock workers and mariners.
It's the people who built this kind of city here, Stefan. That's why I built this place. And he puts an arm around Stefan, like just holding him real close as they're both kind of looking this over. Looking at this bit of magnificence that Stefan has added, that final touch. Any other?
Oh wow! And indeed, when you kind of put your arm over his shoulder, he tries to keep himself from doing anything else, but he places his hand up around the edge to check the sand level, and then dust his fingers off before he pulled it out. That last detail, he just couldn't keep himself from. And then he almost has a guilty look on his face.
Don't worry, Stefan. Still one last thing to do. He kind of smiles with this knowing smile at Stefan. Like, Axel, he may not be the sharpest knife in the drawer, but maybe Axel can plan once in a while. He reaches behind the bar and he brings out a small
Stefan gets down
black case.
from the bar not easily. It takes him a bit of time.
And Axel opens it up. And inside this black box is a small plaque, this little bit of gold and silver with 2 holes in the side. And he places it just at the bottom, and just careful to measure it, and takes a small finishing nail, pressing it in just enough to hold its place, just enough to go. Takes a small tack hammer, and he's very gentle with each strike. And when he walks away, this small piece of silver and gold, marking the bottom and underneath. It reads, by Stefan Braunfiedler.